Hey, this is Corey Barnes.
And this is Lisa Caperton, and you're listening to Her Turn to Talk,
a podcast about women.
For women. Hey, Corey.
Hey, Lisa.
All right. Do you want me to tell you about a badass woman?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is actually, I'm going to be a nerd, from, I don't even know how I'm a part of this group on Facebook, but I am. I Love Astronomy VIP Club. And this is from somebody posted from Nature Science.
Yeah, how did you end up on that group?
I don't know, but it's pretty cool. That doesn't matter, Corey.
It's rad.
So this badass woman I learned about is named Cecilia Payne. Do you want to know what Cecilia Payne did?
For sure.
So first of all, she died in 1979. So that's the year I was born.
Damn.
So she died. But I can't tell you when she was born. So anyways, that doesn't matter. Anyways, since her
Sometime
death.
before 1979.
So this is something that I learned about her. And it has never been, she's never had a plaque in her name. And any of her obituaries telling about her, nothing was ever said. Like, so she never got like this credit, right? So you have people like Darwin, who gets, obviously evolution, Albert Einstein, discovered relativity of time, all of these things. These men get all these credit. But where is the credit for when it comes to the composition of the universe?
The composition of the universe.
The composition of the universe.
The whole entire universe.
Well, they say that the most abundant atom in the universe is hydrogen. Giving you a science lesson here.
Okay.
So,
yeah, sure. Hydrogen.
Cecilia Payne was the one who discovered that.
Oh.
So she was the scientist. And so she actually didn't have any money, and she ended up going to Cambridge on a scholarship. And she completed her studies there, but because she was a woman, they wouldn't give her degree. Wow. And so she left there. She comes to the States, and she was the first person to ever earn a PhD in astronomy from Radcliffe College.
Wow. First person?
That's what it says.
Not first woman, first person.
Let's be honest. This is from a Facebook group, so sure. I'm saying it now. This is not necessarily the most reliable source, but hopefully people will get interested and they can go read about Cecilia Payne themselves, and I'm sure they'll let us know what I got wrong, and that's okay. I encourage that. But she was, not really ever given credit for this discovering that the universe is made out of hydrogen. And it says the reason that we know basically anything about variable stars whose brightness as seen from the Earth, was literally, all those studies are based from her work. So then, and she was also the first woman promoted to be a full professor from within Harvard, and is often credited with breaking the glass ceiling, not grass, the glass ceiling for women in the Harvard Science Department in astronomy.
A Massachusetts girl.
Yeah. Well, she's originally British.
Yeah, England. But died there.
But that's the information I got for this week's, or my, limited research on a badass woman.
Yeah, she is a badass woman.
There you go.
Can I just interject here, because I couldn't help but look up this amazing
please
Cecilia
do.
Payne Gap O Schidgen.
Yeah, I left that part out.
Here on Wikipedia, we got a nice photo of Cecilia.
I know, she's beautiful.
Beautiful. And it looks like she was born in May of 1900. So she was 79 when she died.
That's a pretty long life.
Yeah. All things considered. And look at this. There is all kinds of information about her here.
Yeah.
And her doctoral thesis and career. And
so people need to research Cecilia Payne and thank your lucky stars, pun intended, for her.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a terrible joke.
Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thanks
for...
And so what's our purpose of being here? We're introducing our next guest.
Katherine Gunny. She's a professor here in Colorado at CU in Denver.
That's right. And so today, people are going to hear our conversation with Katherine Gunny about how an aspiring truck driver gets her PhD.
thrilled to have you on the show, Katherine. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great.
It's nice to see you.
Can you tell us a little bit about, like, what is that? What is a professor of accounting? What do you like?
So professors, it's pretty standard. You can, if you're a tenured professor, that means that you're paid to do research and teaching. So as a professor, about 40% of your job is research, 40% of your job is teaching, and 20% of your job is service.
Oh.
And to get tenure, so once you get a job, you're trying to make tenure.
And you have tenure.
I just got tenure this year.
Is that mean you can't get
Congratulations.
fired?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so tenure is an interesting thing because it's one of the few professions left where you go up for tenure after 6-7 years and you either get fired or you get a job for life.
That's awesome.
And there's no way to reapply. Once that
So
happens,
you can go in there and act like a maniac and you still can't get fired?
Yeah.
I've only
Pretty
seen it in
much.
the movies.
I know.
So when you told me about it, I was like, I know what that is because I've seen it in the movies.
Tenure, yeah, because
It's a big
it's
deal.
a strange thing. People
Yeah.
don't really have that anymore.
Yeah.
The basis for that was that, so you're conducting research, you're pushing forward thought. The basis for that when they started tenure was that once you get tenure, then you can work on things that might be a little more controversial.
Sure.
Right.
And people can't retaliate. People can't fire you.
Right.
So there's
what's
actually a reason for it.
controversial in accounting.
So I'm not sure there's too much controversial, but it's little things.
Yeah.
So, it's similar to economics that like how much regulation do we need? How much the auditors need to participate in the process? The one side, wants little regulation. The other side wants some
Right.
regulation. That's probably the most controversial aspect of it.
And how do you are you working on research right now?
Yes, I'm working on research right now. And it's interesting. So, there's research you do to make sure, you want to know what food is healthy, right? So the
Right.
scientists do research to see what's healthy. And you hear studies that come out that say eggs are bad, right? But actually, there's not one study that answers that question because there's eggs on the one hand, bad on the other side. How do you measure eggs?
Sure.
Is that every day? Is that the yolk? Is that the white? There's millions of ways to measure
Right.
egg. There's millions of ways to measure bad. Like, is it that you die? Is it that you're obese?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's similar with the accounting research where we look at, like, say, a regulation comes out and we'll say, is this good for society or is this bad? There's millions of ways to measure bad. There's millions of ways to measure that regulation. So what happens is there's lots of papers on that. I'll be one of those papers on that. And then we create a body of evidence
And
that
how long
answers
does
the
that
question.
take you? Like, how long are you researching something for?
So my dissertation took me 8 years to get it published.
Oh, wow.
So I started writing the paper. In the end, it's 30 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like my mother always says, it took you 8 years to publish 30 pages, but you probably write thousands of pages because you send it to the journal, they reject it or they accept it. If they accept it, they say, do all these changes. It comes back. It takes you a year. It comes back again. It takes you a year. It takes you a year.
Yeah.
So
But doesn't things, change in that 8 years? Because things are evolving and changing all the time. And so is it still relevant after 8 years?
So
Or-
it is still relevant after 8 years. And this is an interesting question because like with the stuff that I do, it's like accounting regulations that changed like after the collapse of Enron, things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So those kind of things don't move fast. Like SOX was the biggest change, Sarbanes-Oxley, this act that like changed a lot of how we do things and how firms do things was like the biggest sea change since for a long time. But now if you're talking about tax research, what I do not do because we specialize. I don't have the capacity for tax research. It's a lot of, you have to specialize.
Right.
So the taxes just changed. So a lot of people that were working on research that was relevant to the old tax code, now it's irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely correct. Sometimes it can be outdated, but a lot of times you can pivot your questions so that they're relevant for some other setting.
Right.
Just a moment ago, you mentioned that you had to send your papers into the journal. Now, what is that?
Okay. So that's an interesting thing. So there's a set of journals out there, and they have different stature.
Educational stature.
Yeah. Or research stature to say like, oh, if it's in this journal, it must be
because like doctors, other professions have these different journals.
Yeah, those have that too. Like you think of the New England Journal of Medicine.
Right.
Or in science, you think of Science and Nature as the premier journals for science outlets.
So accounting has their own
set of journals, and we're constant. There's 3 that we know are the top tier, but then people are always arguing over whether the journals have good or bad quality.
Yeah.
Right.
So
wasn't there some guys recently debunking the journals, and they were writing in letters? Did you hear anything about this?
So I think I think there's always people and there's websites that go after certain journal articles.
It's like a thing.
Yeah. So they'll say they'll try and replicate what they did.
I'm trying to find more information. I can't find it right now, but this is great. Yeah.
They'll try and replicate what someone else did, and they can't replicate it. And then sometimes they'll just say, oh, that was because of the time period, or that was because of this. Sometimes it'll get debunked.
Yeah.
And there's a website that shows all of retraction something that'll show all the journal articles that got retracted.
Yeah.
And you'll see it some like science researchers at very good schools where they get their journals retracted because no one can replicate the data, or they found out that it was fraudulent.
Wow.
Now these journals, the quality of the journals depends on, so it's a peer-reviewed system. So you don't just send something in and some editor says, well, it looks good.
Yeah.
It's basically you send it in, and then there's 2 experts and an editor in the field that really give you a hard time on your paper.
Right.
That's why it takes so long to get published.
Yeah, you have to.
Because they want to make sure you're doing things right, and everything you do should be, someone else should be able to replicate it.
Yeah.
Right.
To keep the honor of the system.
So now, so the other part of your job is teaching. Now, do you like teaching as much as you or research? Which one do you like better?
So I think it's interesting because, you know, I told you we have to go up for tenure.
Yeah.
If you're a tenure track professor that gets paid for research, when you go up for tenure, no matter how good of a teacher you are, you're not going to get it unless you have enough research.
Okay. So that you really have to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to do more. You have to be what's called excellent on research, and then you can just be good at teaching.
Right. Do you enjoy teaching?
So I do enjoy teaching. I really like it. And I think when I was at Boulder for 8 years.
Yeah.
And I taught the undergrads there like fundamental accounting classes, and that's fun because you give them the tools. It's like teaching a language. Now that I'm down at CU Denver, I teach the master's students.
Right.
So I feel that's actually different. I think it's more fun for me because it's basically all these little accounting students that are really into the details, know all the details.
Right.
And it's so like, hey guys,
they're into it.
They're
not
into
just there
it.
to get a class checked off their list. Or
exactly.
Whatever. Right.
But then I teach in the master's program, so it's like, hey guys, let's get out of the weeds. Let's take a bigger look. We do Harvard cases. We talk about critical thinking, and it can really kind of shape at that point how they think of things.
Now, do you ever get like attached to certain students or involved in any way? Like, I feel like sometimes I would be like, oh, like I really like this one, and like my mom's side would come out to this one student. Maybe I saw them struggling, and I'd be like, I just want to help them. Like, do you ever, or are you good at like separating that?
No, I'm good at having boundaries with my students.
Okay.
So I have boundaries with my students for personal stuff, but where my job is like, let's say, so it's CU Denver. I like it too because there's a lot of first generation students. Like no one's ever been to college.
Right.
There's a lot of underrepresented minorities there.
Yeah.
So they might not have the institutional details, especially business, because that gets passed down through the family, right? If your dad's a tax partner, you know what it's like.
Right.
So what I like about that is like they might be a little insecure about things, and I feel like my job is to give them confidence. Say, hey, look, you know, everyone who does this, you think they're smart, but they're not. They're just like us, and you can do it too. Make sure you take your CPA. So I feel like my job is kind of a cheerleader for them. Yeah. To give them confidence. Because
have you ever had anybody just come tell you like any crazy experiences, like, you know, oh, I didn't get this project done because, you know, whatever, my dog ate my homework, teacher, like any crazy things like that ever happen?
Yeah. So with the undergrads, I got it all the time, and I was tough on them.
Yeah.
I would get, at CU Boulder, I would get, Professor, I didn't turn in my homework because it was my 21st birthday last night, and obviously I went out and got drunk.
They were honest.
So I'm not going to be in class, and I'm not going to do my homework.
And what do you say?
I would just say, well, you're getting a 0 on your homework. And in my head, I would think, why are you telling me this? Can't you come up with a better excuse? Then obviously I went out and got drunk. It's not so much being honest, it's being professional. You wouldn't tell your boss that.
No.
Right? You wouldn't tell your boss that, even if it's true.
Yeah.
For my students at CU Denver, them I'm way more lenient on because they work all day. They usually have full-time jobs. They have a family. They have things going on. So if they tell me something's going on, I don't feel like they'll take advantage of me. So they'll say like, "Oh, I got my wife got me tickets to a concert."
Right.
And it happens to be on the night we have class, and I'll be like, "Yeah,
right.
You can use one of these cards every semester."
Yeah. So was your aspiration ever since you were young, it was to be a teacher?
No.
What
I was first generation. Mm-hmm. So the things I saw were more using your hands to work and that kind of thing.
What did mom and dad do?
So my mom was stay at home.
Okay.
My dad was he's a product manager. So my dad's an interesting guy in that he dropped out of school when he was 16 and went to the military, and he didn't go to college, but then he got a job and he worked his way up in a business. So he was a product manager, and like he didn't have a college degree, but the other people who had that job at the company had MBAs. And I'm not necessarily sure that could happen today, but he was a very hard worker. So I got my work ethic from him. But I didn't know PhDs existed. So PhD is a doctoral degree that you get, when you go to school for 4 or 5 years. I didn't know those existed, and I didn't know that being a professor existed. When I thought of teachers, I thought of K through 12.
Right.
Because that's all I saw. And actually, I wasn't interested in that because I was a disruptive kid and I thought they had a hard job.
So what did you want to do when you were a little girl growing up, or
So in elementary school, I wanted to be a truck driver. I thought that would be cool.
But why a truck driver? Like, what made you think, oh my God, look at that guy driving that big rig? Or did you want to pull the horn?
Driving.
Hang out at
I loved driving. Like, I wanted to drive. I didn't understand the concept of the truck stop. That would have scared me. That would have scared me had I understood truck stops.
This is California,
when I was
right?
a child.
Is that right? Did you grow up in California?
No, this was St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, you're from Missouri.
So first grade through 6th, I was in St. Louis.
Missouri.
Middle school, I was in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Oh, no way.
And then California, Northern California.
So
I wanted to be a truck driver or like a wrestling person. That wrestling was my aspirational. I knew it wouldn't be possible, but that's what I dreamed about.
And where did that come from? Did you
loved
TV?
wrestling
Did you
when
watch
I was a kid.
like women's wrestling or men's wrestling?
I watched men's wrestling. And it was like...
Did you have brothers? Or did you just watch or did you watch it with your dad?
No, I just watched.
Yourself?
I was a tomboy.
Okay.
So I dressed in boys' clothes. I had my hair cut short. I watched wrestling. I played sports. I caught bugs and snakes.
Yeah.
Like, I would go into the girls' bathroom and someone would say, your bathroom's over there. And I'm like, no, I'm a girl.
Now, did you have a favorite wrestler?
Yes, Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan!
Oh, yes.
So I think it was the days of Hulk Hogan.
Hulk.
So I'd wait every Saturday night for Saturday night's main event.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would tape it. And then I would watch it every day after school.
Would you like reenact the moves?
Yes,
in
I
the
would
living room?
reenact the moves.
You have to.
Did you have
reenact the
sleepovers
moves.
and you're like, all right, guys, we're not having dance party, we're having wrestling.
Yeah, I would try, but my friends were a little more, traditional in their gender roles, and they weren't as into wrestling.
So you were having
So we would have to
like...
dance or something like that.
I hated always having to have the dance party because I am a terrible dancer and have always been, and it's always been like
we watched
I just
movies.
get made fun about it.
We were big time movie watchers. And then getting into
Movie
trouble
watchers.
with other things real quickly. Yeah, movies.
And prank calling, that was the
we
fun.
go for walks.
You can't do that anymore. Kids have lost that ability because
No, it's considered
Lame.
bullying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, when I think back, there's a lot of things we did that were not that nice.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Like smashing
Oh, yeah.
pumpkins and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's some kid's
Shit still happens.
pumpkin, and
Yeah.
you
Did you
smash
guys
it on the
ever,
ground.
Did you guys ever get pantsed?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
I got pantsed at school. I'll never forget
got
it.
pantsed
In
at
5th
school,
grade,
too.
in the gym by Maria.
It was probably embarrassing, right?
Oh my gosh, I cried. I remember I had like white little cotton shorts on, and I think I even had a white shirt on, and I just pulled my pants up and I ran into the locker room. I'm crying, and everybody comes in there like to console me, and they're like all talking bad about Maria, and you know, everybody hated her after that. But now I look back and I just think like, oh, like, you know, she needed attention, and she did it to be funny, and that girl probably, who knows what it, you know, like she didn't, you know, she wasn't thinking. But now, like, if somebody was to do that, like you
I actually
sexual assault.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with the new times. It's like have a different standard. You set expectations and people meet them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or come close.
Come close, yeah.
So in your journey of from wrestling, now wait a minute, do you watch Glow on Netflix?
I started watching it.
Did you like it?
And I enjoyed it. Well, you know, I changed my taste. I'm not as big of a wrestling fan anymore. That kind of stopped after like sixth grade.
Right. Like back in the day, though, it was like the thing. Like,
it was the thing.
Oh my gosh, I was wrestling in the living room
Yeah.
with the boys that I would get babysat by. You know, not that. You know, it was my babysitter's kids or whatever, and we'd be doing whatever those are. I don't know, chokeholds and body slams, and like pretending the ring, like each side of the couch is the, you know, the ring, and we're bouncing off the couches.
Exactly.
And,
it was
flip it over.
It was such a cool thing back then.
Yeah,
It was cool.
It's not. It doesn't have like the same.
It was cool.
I don't even know. Do they even have? I don't even know. Well, I guess
Yeah,
they do.
have wrestling.
They do. Yeah.
There was a guy that I worked with at CU Boulder, a faculty member, and he was really into wrestling.
Yeah.
He
So
would
when
still
did
go to
that
the
change for
events.
you? Like, was it in high school that you were like, okay, like I want to, you know, have a career?
Actually, to get a PhD, you kind of have to be academic, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't become academic till, I just was happy to coast in my grades.
Yeah.
So through high school, and then I wasn't sure where I was going to college. I went to junior college, and then I went to junior college, and then I got into UC Davis.
Yeah.
And that's when
I to junior college for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Okay.
And then California is nice because they have transfer agreements. Like you can, if you get a certain GPA, you can go to Berkeley, you can go to UC
nice.
Davis.
Yeah. And see, I think that's interesting because I feel like for me, as someone like, you know, both my parents are uneducated. Like I grew up like, you know, nobody in my family was gone to college, like none. And so like when I hear somebody say I'm a professor, I think, oh, well, you must have done really great in high school, then you went straight to the university and you did that, you know. And so
you
it's
might
like,
you must have went to Yale and Harvard and all these places.
Right. And so it's like great to know, like, no, like you can, you know, be a normal person. You go to high school, you go to journey, like you just worked. You literally just worked to earn your way there, you know?
Do you ever go by Dr. Katherine Gunny?
In the United States, people don't really do that.
No?
You don't do it on the plane? You're like,
see, on the plane, I'm afraid if I put doctor, they'll think I'm a medical doctor.
Yeah. I guess
And it's like, I don't want anything to do with that. Yeah. In the United States, people are very informal. In Switzerland, my friend's a professor, and they call her Dr. Professor Chen.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So when I was there, I was Dr. Professor Gunny. And they were very respectful of me.
Yeah.
Not
You
so
worked
much
hard
here.
for that title.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. It's a lot of work. So, you know, it's times are changing and times have changed, I believe. But when you were going through all of your schooling, was it mostly male dominant? Like, because when you think any kind of mathematics and stuff, it's usually a lot of men.
Yeah.
Do you feel that was true for you?
So it's interesting. So when economics and finance are male dominated.
Yeah.
Accounting tends not to be.
Okay, that's interesting.
So there were more males in my graduate program, but there were always kind of female professors that you could.
Yeah, stereotypically, I was thinking accounting is the woman, and the finance and the economics is male. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, so those ones are a little more. And actually, that just happened in accounting like 10 years before I got there. And it was still very hard for women to become professors and have a family and do all of this kind of thing.
Because everybody's like, oh, you can be
Was that in the 80s?
Yeah, because I'll talk to professors that are maybe, you know, almost at retirement age, and they'll tell me they had to choose between, they felt like they had to choose between career and family.
And now I think we should bring, like, you have done both. You're doing both.
Yeah.
You're a tenured professor and you have 2 children. Like, how did that happen? Like, do you feel like you've sacrificed anyway, or maybe it's every day. Maybe some days are different. Maybe you feel like you're sacrificing family for work, but maybe some days you're sacrificing work for family. Or do you feel like you've struck a balance?
Yeah, see, I don't feel that way. I think that first of all, I had a supportive family unit. Yeah. So in my marriage, it's not like, okay, you have a vagina, so you do all the housework and you do everything. It's not like that. It's more equal partners. Right. Mm. So it wasn't like more of the burden of childcare was put on me. Mm. Right. But me and my husband both work. We've always had nannies or childcare. Right. And I think when I was with the first one, I wanted to get back to work after 6 weeks. Mm. Yeah. And I enjoy working. Yeah. And I don't enjoy, like with my children, I think if I was with them 24/7, I really believe that we wouldn't have as good of a relationship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's hard. And I think like as, you know, a mom, like sometimes people expect that that's the way we should be and we should want to be with our kids. And it's hard. It's just hard to be a mom in general. Yeah. And I don't think like that we should be, you know, putting that on women that like, oh, well, you know, something's wrong with you if you want to go back to work and you don't want to be with your kid. Like, no, that's healthy. Like we're a person. We're not like a mom is just a fragment of who we are. It's part of who we are, but it's not all that we are.
Yeah. And what I realized being a parent too, and you look around and you see people, it's not the amount of time you spend with your child that determines the quality of your relationship.
Yeah. Right. Right.
It's just not. So on those times you do spend with them, you do things to develop a quality relationship. Right. You're kind of in
quality over quantity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I think sometimes, like even for me, if I had quantity with them, I think that's good enough. Yeah. I actually have to try harder because I don't spend every night with them. Like this week, I've been gone every single night. Right. And that's fine, you know?
Well, and I think like, you know, I'll just give you a pat on the back here. It's like, I see you as this successful woman. But I also, you know, I do have the privilege of I've seen you with your children and being a mom. And, you know, you volunteer at the soup kitchen. We volunteer together and we bring our kids. And it's like, you know, I see you make time to not only just like, hey, I'm going to hang out with you at the house. Like you're doing things. And like, I know you take them on hikes and you're like also teaching them to be good human beings out in the world and to give back. Like, I feel like you do a really good job of being very well-rounded in your motherhood also.
Yeah, I try because I think in my life I had more struggles, you know, just like if your parents don't go to college. Right. My parents were great because they didn't go to college, but they always moved to places with good schools. They knew education was the key. So they'd move to these places and I'd be different than them. My parents would be different than them. So that was actually kind of hard. So I would hang out with immigrants because we both felt like outsiders. And I actually believe that hanging out with immigrants is why I got my PhD, because immigrants, the ones I hung out with, their parents were like, education, education, get your PhD, get your PhD. Mm-hmm. So when I was hanging out with these people in high school, it's like, their view was, you're a loser if you don't get your PhD. I was like, first of all, what's a PhD? And let me get it so I'm not a loser, you know? Yeah. And
so that started me thinking about it's about who you hang out with sometimes, you know?
And I think for me, who I hung out with, those people were kind of pivotal in...
I wish I would have hung out with those people because I didn't.
Are you still friends with any of those people?
Yeah, I'm friends with all of them. And it's funny because they all wanted to get PhDs. One got a PhD. One got MD. And then two of them didn't even get a PhD, and they have happy lives anyway.
Yeah. So Katherine, I know that we asked you a question. We did send you some pre-interview questions, and one of the things we asked you about was if you're oh my gosh, I'm messing up here. Yes, about something funny or embarrassing that you have a story. And so I'm wondering what that is.
That was a hard one for me in the pre-interview. There's a couple of them. One of them was like when I was because if you ask anyone that knew me when I was a kid, and let's say they hadn't seen me since, and that you told them I was a professor, they would be shocked.
Yeah.
I was like kind of a flighty little kid. And one of the stories I put was that when I was in, I think 2nd or 3rd grade, like Miss Bear would come get me out and take me to a special group. And I thought it was so cool. I'm like, ooh, I get to go to the special group. I must be special. And I would like feel very proud and hold my head up high. But then it wasn't till the end of the year. And I found out it was the slow reading group.
And then were you like, oh,
it was the slow reading group. I'm like, oh, we had fun. I had no clue.
What does it matter? Yeah, like who cares? At least you were happy.
That's great.
Yeah, so you can be in the slow reading group and still be a professor too.
Right. Yep. Now, do you like reading, or were you always like just more math oriented person?
So I hate to say it, but I reading, I don't like it. I mean, I'm not a good reader. I look at my son and he can go through 20 books in a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you read more in 2 weeks than I read my entire childhood.
Yeah. No,
and I'm just like, it's not into it. So now I'm into audiobooks.
They have changed, yes. And podcasts, they've changed my life.
So now I can read books. And I do a lot of reading, like of journal articles, which is very technical reading for my work.
Yeah.
So then, like, when I relax after work, it's not like I want to do more.
Right. Yeah.
Reading.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
But math, you like numbers.
Yeah, I like numbers. So I was thinking about this, and okay, so there's like real math people that like to do derivations and come up with things. Yeah. I'm not that extreme on that side. On the other side, like with the you know, like history and political science, you have to kind of memorize themes and things. That's not my thing either. It's something in the middle where it's like a light equation. Like that's why I like economics.
Yeah.
It's like there's formulas that tell you how to think about things.
Yeah.
And that helps me because I don't think I'm great at memorizing. I need some kind of guide that I can think about that helps me figure out what to do.
You know, I've been thinking, like, what is the difference? What is the true definition of accounting? I think of accounting, I think of QuickBooks, right?
Oh,
I think
this
of
is a great
CPA.
question.
What are you, right? And then, you know, we're talking finance, economics, like studying the stocks, perhaps. I don't know. I'd love to.
Yeah. So this is a good question because accounting, I think, so originally I wanted to go into economics. And I decided to work first. Yeah. And then I worked in a litigation consulting firm. So this litigation consulting firm is where one firm sues another, like for patent infringement.
Sure.
And then they hire an economist to estimate the damages. Well, I didn't even like accounting until I got this job. And we had to use financial statements to come up with that estimate of the damage.
Oh.
And what I realized, like, you really have to understand how the accounting works to know how those numbers are being driven.
Yeah.
So then I decided to go into accounting because as I see it, accounting is a subfield of economics.
Right.
It's just information.
It's
so
just
think about
information.
it. It's just information. So think about it. Like if you think of a publicly traded company, they have hundreds of millions of transactions a day. How do you represent
incredible.
that?
Right.
Yeah.
How do you represent that in something that's informative? That's what accounting does. It represents it into, it keeps track of it and it represents it into something that's informative. What did you invest? What did you make? Right? And it's just how it is. I mean, there's one part of that that's the details. And that's what our students learn when they're first doing it. And that's what accountants do on a daily basis. That's not what I'm particularly interested in. I'm interested in the high level stuff. How do you use that information? How do you create that information?
Yeah.
How do people interpret that information?
Yeah. And do you use software? Do you work on writing things up by hand? Because back in the day, you have a book and a pencil and you're balancing and
So when I research accounting topics, it's not doing the accounting. It's using accounting information. So we look at financial statements. So there's a bunch of databases that'll tell you all of the financial information of every company.
Oh, you can have that information at
it's at your fingertips in a database. Wow. So the accountants are doing it. We look at the information they created.
Wow.
And then you can link it to databases like, executive compensation, how much the CEO gets paid. Everyone says, the CEOs get paid too much. So you can use that information to see if CEOs get paid too much.
Yeah. Wow. That's a whole rabbit hole itself.
So when you were doing all your studies for this, did you ever come into a point that you were like, I can't do this? Was it were you ever at a trial of oh my gosh, this is too hard? you know, like, I want to give up? And if so, like, how did you work past that? How did you keep
pretty
going?
much every day of the PhD.
Every day.
Every single day of the PhD. It was hard work. You have to learn a lot, and then you have to do the research, and you're like, oh, I don't think this is going to work out. I need to get my dissertation
and I think like that right there, it's like everybody has that thought of like, what am I doing? I can't do this. And so it's like, like people who have achieved something, it's like, how do you get past that thought? And like, what did you do?
How do you get past that stuff? You just keep going. You just keep trying. You keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you don't give up. You just make a conscious choice not to give up. You say, I'm going to go in the office every day. I'm going to just do something on my dissertation.
Right. So even, you're like, who cares if it sucks? I'm just, as long as I'm doing something.
I'm going to keep trying to do something. And what you realize when you go into any profession, actually, is that the people are not that smart. I mean, sure, there's some like geniuses that just have it.
Right.
But other people just work hard and they keep trying.
Right.
It's
anybody
the people
can be an
with
expert at
persistence.
something.
Yeah, it's people with persistence that make it in this world.
And when you finished all of that, what did that feel like to you?
Oh, so when I finished, so it took 5 years, and then I finally got the dissertation. It was great to finish. I think finishing the dissertation was one point, and then getting a job was a different point.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to send your papers everywhere and hope that you're going to get a job in a place you want to live.
Right.
And is that how you ended up in Boulder, Colorado?
That's how I ended up in Boulder, Colorado. Wow. So I had an offer from University of Florida. So I thought, okay, at a minimum, I'm moving to Gainesville, Florida. And I wasn't so much into the South, but then I got an offer from Boulder, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'll move here. Because I'd been here on the interview. So academic interviews, you go fly out there, you spend a day and a half talking to people and presenting your paper.
And what is that like? Like, what is that feeling like of, I got to go sell myself? Basically, that's what you're doing is like, And so
like, the first few times, it's nerve-wracking. Yeah. But actually, you go, like my dissertation, I presented it 4 or 5 places. And the first time you do it, it's nerve-wracking, but then you kind of get over it. I remember I had an interview at NYU.
Yeah.
And like, so you sit in your office when you're a PhD student, read all these papers, and you see these names over and over again, and they become like celebrities to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
They become like rock stars.
Right.
So I remember I was at NYU, and one of those rock stars walked in.
Oh, gosh.
And I think it was my first or second interview, and I was like, oh, there he is.
So like, can I get your autograph after?
And it's gonna be an hour and a half of his time, and he's just gonna listen to me.
Wow.
Like, I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be here. All of this kind of stuff. But then I just, calm down and do what you need to do. I've been working on my dissertation for a long time, so I knew something.
Yeah.
And did they teach you in college how to present these types of things, or is this just something you happen to have in you? Because you
have to learn on your own. So that's another thing. So if you think about it, I was terrified of public speaking.
Yeah.
Terrified. But the thing about it is like you do it a few times. Like I remember when I was an undergrad, I was a TA in a marketing class, and the professor's like, oh, this is good for you. You're going to teach 15 minutes of my class today. Nerve-wrack.
Yeah.
And then I did it, and I had a high afterwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because first, it didn't go as badly as I thought. And second of all, if you keep doing it, you get good at little techniques.
Right.
And you get more confident,
it's like everything, right? Yeah. Like the more you practice,
it's like
the
everything.
better you get. Yeah.
So it's funny when people say, I hate X.
Right.
I think it's just because you haven't done it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do it 15 times and you won't hate X. You'll actually know how to do it. Unless it's a serious phobia. Like if you're then maybe doing it 15 times isn't going to help you. But most things aren't phobias, right?
Right.
And now I really enjoy presenting. I still get nervous the first time I present a paper. Like I'm going up to, I forget what HEC Montreal. So I'm going there to present a paper in October. And it's the first time I've presented this paper. The audience isn't going to be particularly critical. Like some audiences can be very critical, and you kind of prepare for going in for war.
Yeah. Oh, so they can like talk to you?
Yeah.
Doing this? Okay. So that's even worse.
That's another piece of academics. That's another piece of academics. You present your work.
Yeah.
And their job is to criticize you and poke holes in everything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So you got to have
to make the work better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to have a thick skin.
Now, have you ever had anybody that you're just like, God, you're just mean. Like, this is not helpful. You're just mean.
Course,
or
yeah.
And how do you deal with that? Like, have you ever cried after any of this? Like, I feel like sometimes I would just be like just the emotional of everything would be like, oh.
I've never cried. I've never cried in a presentation.
Yeah.
But I've almost cried before a presentation.
Yeah.
I remember for my dissertation defense or my proposal. You have to propose an idea that you're going to do your dissertation on. I was so worried. And my friend told me that when you're speaking, it uses kind of the same, and anyone in neuroscience will probably debunk this. But when you're speaking, it uses the same thing as what you're worrying about. So once you start talking, it kind of goes away. So then I used this technique, and I would read New Yorker articles.
Yeah.
And I would read sad ones, like about Lapita not having money for groceries.
Yeah,
I remember reading this one like before my thing. So I would read it out loud in my office, like before I went, so I wouldn't get jitters.
Yeah. And I feel like it would like not necessarily meaning like, you know, that you would cry during. I feel like I would cry like just after of like just that release of like, oh, it's over and like, I don't know, but
no,
I'm
there's
a crier.
Release of yeah. I guess you're a crier because for me, there's a release of I feel like a weight's been lifted off
like
once it's over with.
$1,000,000 good to go. Yeah. And so you were talking about your husband and how supportive he is, and so I'm sure he's like got to be very proud of you. And were you together when you were going through all this schooling and stuff?
No, actually, I met him when I was flying for my interviews.
Yeah.
So
you were actually.
I met him on the plane.
Oh wow.
So I flew out and I had an interview at Georgia Tech, which is in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then that afternoon I flew back, and he was on my flight. Like we were looking at each other beforehand. So one thing I do is I would read at that time. I would read Us magazine to calm down after it.
Yeah.
Because
some just plain junk stuff. Yeah.
So that day I happened to be reading an Economist though. The Economist magazine. And I always ask him, like, if you looked over and I was reading an Us magazine, would you think of me differently than I was reading The Economist?
Oh my God.
Yeah, but we were kind of checking each other out before. Then we ended up sitting next to each other.
I love that story.
And so did he make the first move of talking, or did you?
I don't remember, but it's interesting. We talked about heavy topics.
So
we talked about racism. We talked about the death penalty, whether it should happen for people with mental disabilities. And it was a 3.5 hour flight, and like they're like you're landing, and it was like 2 seconds.
Were you guys like agreeing on all this? Or were you actually like kind of disagreeing and having some banter over things?
That's why I liked him, because my style, and this is kind of an economist's perspective.
Yeah.
Is to talk through the costs of one decision and the benefits. Here's the pros, here's the cons.
Yep.
I think this outweighs the other. And that's how we were talking about these things. And he seemed very reasonable. He didn't say, I believe this, because that's a real turnoff to me.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Because I can always be persuaded on an issue. There's certain things I think it would be very hard to persuade me, but I'm willing to think that maybe I could be persuaded.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we were talking about that. And I also had this really weird thing, because like I know there's racism everywhere, but in Berkeley, people don't explicitly talk about their racism. They hide it.
Right.
But when I was in Atlanta, I was looking out over the city, and someone there asked me, oh, where would you want to live if you came and worked here? And I said, oh, maybe downtown, because I don't have a family and it'd probably be cool. Downtowns are cool.
Right.
And the guy said, but all the Black people live there. And I was like, oh my God.
You're like, what are you saying?
I was like so shocked. And that had just happened like before I went to the airplane.
Yeah.
So then we talked about that, and he just, I told him what happened, and he just started laughing, and he's like, oh, that's because he knows you're from Berkeley. He wanted to like poke you and see like what was happening.
Yeah.
And see if you would like
what was your answer to that guy's question? Were you just like, I don't know, like I don't care, like, or how dare you, or like,
flabbergasted.
Right?
What are you saying?
I wouldn't know what
I
to
was
say
flabbergasted.
I'd be like, I still want to be downtown.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I said. I should have said that, and I actually should have confronted him because I didn't like the school.
But when
anyway.
someone says something like that, it'll blow it. You're like,
Yeah.
what? Did that just happen?
Well, and I feel like, it's easier, I found, the older you get, to be more honest about things and confront people on things. It's hard, and especially in that position, like you're interviewing for something, and like, and this person is obviously, supposedly on this, higher level than you, like they're interviewing you for, the job. And so it's like, oh, that's a very awkward position to be.
Yeah. And my husband, Fernando, he had a good perspective on it because his dad faced some of that.
Yeah. So
because his dad was a professor.
Yeah. And they, they're from Bolivia, his parents?
So his mom's from Bolivia,
okay.
his dad's from Ecuador.
Okay. And when did they come here?
They came here when they were like, his dad came here when he was a teenager, and his mom when she was a little older.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he kind of had some experience where, because you're like, I don't.
Which is funny because it seems like if I would talk to another person exactly like myself, it would just be more like, oh, I can't believe it, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, of course that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just what happens.
Yeah. That's just
So
what
it's
happens.
a very it's not a soothing thought, but it's like, I couldn't have done anything in that moment.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so you guys talk, you're having this connection, sparks are flying on the plane. Like, so then what happens? Like, you get there and you exchange numbers?
Yeah, this is pre-cell phone era, right?
Like, what happened?
Yeah, it was pre-cell phone era. So we got there and then we were chatting. It was like 1:30 at night. It was really late. And then, we exchanged numbers. And it's funny because we went and talked to our friends and we're like, oh, we met this person on the plane. It was so awesome. And all of our friends would say, oh, come on, it's just like someone on the plane.
Yeah.
And my friends would say, he's out here for a business trip. Like, get over it. But I was super dreamy. And I wasn't, didn't have a tendency to be super dreamy.
Yeah.
And so then, like, he called and said, oh, I'm happening to stop by Berkeley. Are you around? Oh, yeah, I'm around. And we would hang out.
It was happening.
Yeah. So then we hung out for 2 hours. And then he went up to visit his friend at UC Davis, which is like an hour and a half away. And then I call and say, oh, I happen to be going by. I'm visiting my friend in Tahoe.
Where did he live?
He lived in Boston.
Oh, so you guys were like completely opposite ends
He lived in
of
Boston.
the US. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then on our first date, we went to Yosemite because I was telling my friend, I really like this guy. Like, what should we do? Like, go to the movies or something? It seems too much. She said, go to Yosemite.
Yeah.
Because it's 6 hour drive there, 6 hour drive back. If you really want to spend some time.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, do you want to go to Yosemite? You've never been. He's like, yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
That's a really great
And then I
story.
got my Boulder offer on the way home from Yosemite.
Oh,
and I
wow.
was so excited about it.
Wow.
And from what he tells me, he said that's when he decided to move to Boulder.
Wow. So you guys moved together?
So I moved to Boulder. He moved a month and a half later.
Oh, together though, or separate?
Well, I was moving from Berkeley. He was moving.
No, I meant, did you live together?
Oh, yeah,
when
we
you
lived together.
You lived together right away?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love stories like
And then
that.
when did you get married?
I can't remember these dates.
Pretty
I'm
quickly?
awful. We got engaged pretty quickly because my parents are traditional.
Yeah.
So if he was living with me, it would just be more proper.
Sure.
And like, I kind of laugh at those things because I'm not traditional, but I respect people who have those.
Yeah.
Or was it like a
those
religious
views.
thing for them, or just
No, it
this is
wasn't.
how you do it thing?
It wasn't
like
a
this-
religious
okay.
thing. It wasn't a religious thing. So then, they just felt like.
Yeah.
I think my parents are kind of weird because they were raised like traditional. They weren't traditional, but somehow they felt like they had to keep up the tradition.
Yeah, I think that's just like very common of the generation. And like, even seeing people sometimes, like the woman's still helping the man, like, of that generation. And like, they're like, oh, like, let me make your lunch for you and bring you this. And my husband's like, you don't do that for me. I'm like, because you have legs and arms and you can do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And you're not one of my children. But, like you said, it's like things are so different now. And I think more and more households are like your household where it's very equal. You know what I mean? Of like, who has the time to do that? Like, do you have time to pick up the kids today or do I have time to pick up the kids today? And I think like one of the things I was told when I got married, and it's advice for Corey because she's going to be getting married soon, is that we were told, I remember by this couple, and they were like, marriage is, because you always hear 50-50. And they're like, marriage is not 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 60-40. It's like sometimes your partner is going to be able to give more and you can give less. And sometimes you can only give so much and they got to pick up the slack. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's,
And you got to negotiate it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my biggest pet peeve is like, what is you have to decide what is why am I doing this? Why is this my job?
Right.
And if there's not a good explanation for that.
Right.
And that's what I always tell my friends.
Gender roles
if the reason that you're doing that job, the only reason is that you have a vagina, then you don't need to do the job.
Right. Right. And I think at my house, like I get in this conversation because I have 2 boys, and sometimes they will make a comment of like, oh, well, mom always does that. And we try to explain to them, like, so, Danny, my husband, does work full time. I work part time. So I just have a little more time. So I'm the one who has the time to do, whatever it is. Like, so I do that because of the time. And they're like, sometimes they'll make a comment of like, well, dad makes the money. And he's very good at being like, no, mom makes money too. And mom does more around the house. Like we try to show them like, this is not because she's the mom and I'm the dad. And that's why these things are happening.
It's because it works out that way. Right. And the timing is there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're talking about this, time at the house, time with the kids, time at work. Yeah. Do you ever get alone time? Do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything that you just do on your own? Do you have any self-care time?
I do. And it's funny. My colleagues at work always make fun of me. I like to nap at work.
That's nice, though.
So that's kind of my downtime. Like if I'm at work and let's say I go to work on Monday and I teach at Monday nights and Tuesday nights. So I'm there for, I teach from 6:30 to 10. And, sometimes I'll just lay down and take like a 1.5, 2 hour nap.
Yeah. Have you ever accidentally missed your alarm?
I set my alarm. I set my alarm because I'm a heavy sleeper. But I feel like I get alone time. Like if I'll go out with friends.
Yeah. Yeah. You spin. You like spin class, right?
Oh, I do spin class. I love it.
You're
my buddies
faithful,
in spin.
right?
I go 3 days a week.
That's a big deal.
And actually, like Fernando's getting a new job, and I want to make sure the job lets me go to spin class. And the kids' school schedules allow me to go to spin class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because to me, like a lot of people meditate and that works for them. Really exercise. Because meditation, I think, helps you start again, right?
Yeah.
Start anew. That spin class, it's like, no matter what's happening, I go there, I spin for an hour, and it's like a new day.
Yeah. You've been faithful to that spin, too. You ever look into any of those Peloton bikes?
No, because I feel like I don't want to be by myself.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I'm a person that, like, I'd say I'm introverted a little bit. But I hate being by myself. Like I don't necessarily
be next to someone, not necessarily talk to them.
Exactly. Someone has to be there. They don't have to talk to me, but I'm just there.
Yeah.
So alone time, like rejuvenation time for me is not necessarily alone.
Yeah.
I've tried solo vacations and stuff like that. Does not work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like, looking from as you were as a child to now, do you feel like do you feel fulfilled in your life?
Oh my gosh.
Is there anything you wish you had more of or less of or, anything like that?
I honestly feel so fulfilled.
Yeah.
Like recently, because there were the career things that caused me a lot of stress over the last decade. When kids are babies, they're a lot more stressful.
Yep.
Like, I feel I'm in such a good place right now that, like, I'm just waiting. Like, I need to think about what I want to do. Like, do I want to take up tennis? It's like these small little adjustments, right?
Yeah.
Should I take up tennis and join a tennis club? Should I do this or that? But I think, like, my family's happy.
Yeah.
My kids are happy. My husband's happy. And my mother is, My dad died a few years ago, so I just that's tough for someone. So you want to make sure they're in a good place. She's in a great place too.
Is she here or she?
She's in San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like I don't have much to worry about right now. I know that things will change, so I'm just trying to enjoy it.
No, I think that's a great outlook to have. I think it can get a lot of people can get caught up in the what if this
wanting more. Yeah. I wish I had a couple. Like, it's little things. Like we want to move to South Boulder to be right next to Jackson's school so you can walk to school.
Yeah.
Right? And if that doesn't happen, I still have a very nice place to live.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's the biggest problem I have in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really awesome and like important to feel, fulfilled and just to be happy with right where you're at,
But I actually think I'm to this point because I went through all that stress.
Yeah.
Like I'm to that point with my job because I had a lot of stress. Mm-hmm. I'm to that point with my kids because, they were babies and that was hard. But, teenagers around the bend, you just got to get through things. And you have to push yourself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have my PhD if I didn't push myself and get through that fear.
Yeah. I think I hear a lot in your story. It kind of seems like, just keep moving. And it's like, nothing is forever. Like whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, it's not going to stay that way forever. And if you just, like you said, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, things will happen and change around you. And
things will happen. If you try things that scare you, you'll stay the same unless you try things that don't scare you.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. And I feel like, I'm trying to do that more. I think it can be very easily to be ruled by fear sometimes.
Yeah, even my students, it's like, man, like there was a baseball game and they should go network. And that can be very daunting.
Sure.
Right? Going to a baseball game where it's all the accounting, like this accounting firm, and you have to talk to people. Yeah. And it's like, just go and say a few words. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all you got to do.
Even if it's, hey,
and the ones that are going to go are going to get a good job.
Exactly.
It takes that one step.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's just among friends and among people you mentor, just pushing people to do more.
Yeah.
Do more than what they're comfortable with. That's how we can help each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, was there anything, we're wrapping up on time. So was there anything that you feel like you wanted like the world to know about you? Like something you want to put out there, like about yourself? Put you on the spot a little bit.
Oh my gosh, this is a hard one.
It is a hard one.
It's a hard one.
It is a hard one, I know. You don't have to answer.
Are you getting excited about Halloween?
I'm getting excited about Halloween. There is one thing so the thing that I pushed myself, I talked to Corey about it a couple times. But writing jokes and trying like a newbie comedian night.
Stand-up comedian?
Stand-up, yeah.
Oh my gosh, Katie.
I wrote a few jokes.
I was talking about this earlier.
You should do it, and we'll come and watch you.
Yeah, I need to take my own advice because nothing worries.
Well, there's got to be improv or something. There's got to be.
Okay, I'm not sure I can do improv.
Yeah, we'll come. We'll clap no matter what. We'll get
open mic nights.
Yeah, open mic nights or something like that.
I found a new one at the Attic, Tuesday nights.
Is it Boulder. For jokes or for music?
It could be jokes, music, whatever you want. Okay. You should come. My dad, it's like on my calendar.
You're putting
now,
it out there.
Nights.
It's out.
I'll let you know next time we go.
Okay.
That'd be great.
We'll put it
real
out
good food too.
I'll write a few jokes.
And then
because what I realized, comedians only have 3 jokes that they keep reusing. Yeah. So if I can find 3 jokes,
we'll come back in about a year or so, and then we'll talk about your comedy, routine.
Comedy skit.
I can say a few jokes.
Professor Dr. Katherine Gunny.
Yes.
And you going to get that big Santa this year, the 20-foot Santa?
Oh, man, we just can't figure logistically how to fit it in the yard. But actually, now that you mention it, the new house we're going to buy maybe in South Boulder, I should put that on the list with the real estate agent.
Ooh,
if it's the
should.
3-foot-high snowman.
You should. Oh my gosh. Like whenever I see it in magazines, I think of you.
Oh, I want it so bad.
I know.
I can't handle little knickknacks, but I can handle a 3-foot-high
So you just
snowman.
want one big thing.
One big thing to say,
instead of
okay.
all
He's way more than
the
3
things,
feet, though. How big is he?
It was like they said 3 stories.
3 stories. Yeah. Not 3 feet.
I don't think it's quite 3 stories.
Then
He
somebody
like
will be
towers over the
complaining.
house.
Yeah. Then you
That's
have people
Santa.
complaining
Or no,
because
yeah,
you're
snowman,
blocking their
snowman.
view of the mountain.
Oh God.
I might.
Or it'll blow away because of the Chinook winds.
Probably.
They'll end up over here.
More likely it'll be a high school student that steals it
Probably.
out of the yard.
Probably. All right,
that's so
Catherine.
great.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on here and being just a part of our new journey. And like you're helping us right now. We're learning. So this is a teaching moment for us
Thank you.
right here, right now. And we really appreciate you coming on and just sharing
We love
yourself
you.
with it.
That's great. Keep
Yeah.
up the good work,
We
guys.
admire
If you have an interesting story, something funny, something sad, something you want the world to know, please email us. We want you to share your experiences with us. We'll take these, we'll collect them, we'll do some episodes sometimes where we'll read them. So if you want to be anonymous, please just let us know. We won't read your name. If you want your name read, then we will. But send us those stories, comments, to info@herturntotalkpodcast.com. And we also ask if you like what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you.